Lizelle.
What?
What do you got for the panelists, man?
Okay, so it's interesting that we were talking about when this conversation started, we were talking about the draft, and it made me think about the NFL draft. Not that this draft isn't interesting, but it made me think about the NFL draft. And I want to be fair, I believe your panel talked about Shedeur Sanders. I think there was a little bit of discussion there. But what I wanted to say was that I don't believe that his father should have ever left Jackson State. I think he should still be the coach of Jackson State.
Ooh.
I think that his record does not did not fit him going to Colorado, because anytime he had to play a big game, he lost. They don't have bowls at that level. However, more importantly, the man said that the athletes were the most important thing to him, that raising young men were the most important thing to him. And then literally 6 months later, he's at Colorado. Now, let's just put it like this. When he recruited Travis Hunter, it was arguably the biggest signing in HBCU history, right? Bottom line, without a doubt, right? Which meant that there could have been a fundamental shift in the way that these athletes began to look at these schools if Deion had stayed at Jackson State. Because let me just say this, I don't know if you're reading the news, but St. Aug can't even get a program. Was it St. Aug 2 days ago had to shut it down?
Right.
They couldn't. They can't get a program. Now, I don't want to get into the whole NIL thing, because my belief is if you're gonna pay one, pay them all, not just the big people. Pay them all. If it's gonna be professional, the guy that sits at the end of the bench that's got to go to practice and lift weights and run laps and do everything else and push-ups and whatnot, he doing the same thing that the guys that are the stars. Granted, maybe not on game day, but they're still there. Pay them all. Give them all something, because there's plenty of money. But I go back to Deion. As a ambassador of the game, there is nobody that has replaced him on that level. Where's Eddie George? We ain't seen him, right? Maybe it'll be Michael Vick, right? That's my point, right? Who do we have there, right? If we were talking about changing the narrative, all Deion did was go to the plantation when he went from the field to the house.
Okay.
From the field to the house. Wow. And now Massa got him exactly where he's supposed to be, in the house, because now he's competing on the same level as all the other masters.
Wow.
Let's go.
Wow.
Okay.
You ruffle some feathers.
I wagon on this, right?
Let's just bring the heat, gentlemen. I was waiting on this. I had it. I was like, I'm watching these brothers. I love what they're doing. Let's talk.
So the take on Deion, right? Go ahead, Ken. You want to go? So I'll get my perspective on Deion. Deion is an opportunist, man. Don't lose that in the minutia of football. He's a salesman. He's like a snake oil salesman, dude. Deion has a magnetic charisma with the media and knows how to manipulate them to benefit himself personally. Now, in the midst of that, he compromised Jackson State, and he's compromising Colorado, and he's added to the careers of Travis Hunter and his sons, and it's unknown how many other people that will fall in this cloud of smoke. But at the end of the day, Deion is smart. He's a capitalist. That's what he is. I don't know how good of a football coach Deion Sanders really is. Right?
Right.
But he's a capitalist. He knows how to maximize opportunity to get what he needs, whether it's football wins, whether it's Heisman trophies, whether it's sons being drafted, etc.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up.
And he benefited greatly He's his salary.
Weren't you one of the guys that thought that Shedeur was more talented in the 5th round? And I submit that if he ain't playing for his daddy, he might not get drafted. Because if you look at his stats, Travis Hunter does a whole lot of a receiver like Travis does a whole lot of saving grace, if you know what I'm saying. But if you look at his stats, most of his yardage came after the blowouts because his daddy left him in the game. A lot of the yards after the catch, brother.
You can't spite a guy. You can't spite a guy for having good receivers. You can't spite a guy for having good receivers.
Right. I can't knock him for that.
I'm with Lizelle on this.
But I mean, because Shedeur looks like he's struggling right now. So what I'm saying is that this I see about the opportunity. Listen, there's rumors that Shedeur may not make it out of training camp, which I think is stupid.
Can I say it like this, right? This, right? Because I like to, I kind of agree. I'm agreeing a lot with Lizelle on this, right? In that, and Quake for that matter, because I suggest to you that, the universe balanced itself out, right? Because if Shedeur didn't play for Deion, would he have even been a 5th round pick? Yes. Trap, you think he would have?
He would have.
He would have
been higher than 5th round pick.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Okay. I'm not so sure of that. I'm not
but,
so sure.
But do you think he's a system quarterback or an athletic quarterback? Is he Mahomes or is he Brock Purdy?
So
he's not Brock Purdy.
Let me finish my thesis, right? Because
go ahead.
Because I'm kind of agreeing both with Ray and Lizelle here. I think, and Travis Hunter would have been the number top. He was a generational talent. He would have been the top 3 or 4 or 5 pick, no matter where he played, right? So he's probably got NIL benefits, but his draft position, his name recognition, for the most part, kind of benefited some from Deion, but through it all, the only real person I suggest who benefited from, as Hump said at one time, Prime being Prime, was Prime. Right? Was Prime. Right? I'm not so sure any other player who even trained, all the players who left Jackson State to go with him to Colorado, I don't know how many of them even got drafted. Right? I at the end of the day, and I think Shedeur, and there was some like we like to talk about it, how dirty Shedeur was done. Arguably, he should have been in the first round. Some people think, right? Most people who were fair quarterback folks said if he'd have been in the draft before, he would have been still behind Cam Ward, and Cam Ward would be behind most of those quarterbacks that were drafted last year. So he probably at best was a 3rd, 4th, 5th round quarterback. So I'm not so sure he actually got done all that dirty. And if he did, it's because all the Prime bullshit caught up to both of them, right? And so I don't weep for them, because you can't have it both ways. You can't have it that Prime does all the shit, get everything, does all these kind of things, and then one day it catches up to him, and now there's crime all over the place. I don't buy that shit at all.
I'll chime in a little bit on this. One, the point of Prime being a good coach or not, he's not a good coach. His X's and O's. Now he knows positions. He definitely knows corner. He can definitely help coach up a receiver because he played against them. But if he's ever going to be considered a better than average coach, he's going to have to be surrounded by a lot of positional coach and coordinators that are help driving the team, and he's the motivator. He's the man up front helping to guide the program. Now, the blueprint that Prime put in place is nothing different than him at Florida High School, him at Florida State, him with the Niners, him with Atlanta, him with the Cowboys. I mean, he's Prime being Prime. He is an entity that people pay attention to Ken's point. He knows how to draw into camera. He knows how to say the right thing. He knows how to be provocative. And along with that, everyone started giving him a level of respect that he really didn't earn, right? In terms of the coaching side and to the program side. Now, in terms of what he brought to Jackson State was a powerhouse in the SWAC before he got there, right? He put some more seats in the crowd because he built some seats down the bottom and had some recliners. But they pack out that stadium every damn week. They play at home, so he didn't. He got some money in. He got some facilities. Right. Gave up some of his check, so I can't say that he didn't do anything for Jackson State. Now, him leaving and going to Colorado, I was in the middle of the road on both those, right? Because that's like, all right, who are we to say if you have an opportunity to grow and solidify even more for your family and generational wealth, you got to take it. Who's to say he wasn't going to get that at Jackson State? But that is, Lizelle, you can't, in my opinion, you cannot ignore the impact of NIL in this conversation, because I dare say if he stays at Jackson State and the way that the NIL has evolved over the last couple of years since he left, I don't believe that they will still be able to draw the talent on his name alone that he was able to draw when he first got there. Right.
But Mr. Hump, I submit to you that if he stays, he continues to accrue power and more players, more coaches come to that division. There's more eyeballs. When's the last time you've seen an HBCU game at this point? When you heard anybody talk about it, unless they talk about closing it down.
I can't disagree with you on that, but
no, I want you to.
I can't disagree on that point. But what I will ask you to think about is, would Jackson State draw that type of NIL money?
Right. You know they won't. But again, I think we're also talking about the man that said, my goal is to raise these young men and to hold them accountable. Now we know. And he said, that's why I came to Jackson State. He said, I didn't need the money. You don't remember that? I don't need the money. I mean, is Deion missing any meals? Does he not already sort of had generational wealth? He's been making money forever.
Have we heard any stories? And I'm not defending the dude, because I don't get two shakes of his ass one way or the other. But have we heard any stories where that has not been the case? Where he has been derogatory to someone's career that he brought there? Or someone who transferred to Colorado? That was outside. And here's the caveat, right? That is outside of how any other program is run.
I think that's a great question. I'm going to say that I do not know that from a personal standpoint, but what we do know is, if you didn't hear about Travis Hunter, and if you didn't hear about Shedeur, and what was the other receiver's name? Horn?
Jimmy Horn.
Right, Horn. Yeah. Right? You didn't hear about those three. You didn't hear about anybody else and where they were going to go in the NFL. And to me, that, as somebody said earlier, is extremely self-serving and disappointing to me. That's why I still don't believe that he, and I think, I don't know if we're all in agreement that maybe he shouldn't be the coach of Colorado, because he getting ready to get his head beat in this year. He getting ready to get his head busted for white meat. Facts. Right,
so we'll see, but I think that even though he said that, does that mean he has to stay there forever?
Well, I mean, he didn't have to stay.
I don't know any coach who stayed. He don't have. I mean, honestly,
he had to stay there forever. But he had said, "I'm not saying stay there forever. That would have been dumb." But what I'm saying is 2 years was not enough to do it. He gets one generational talent and his son, and that's all he's got. And again, the games that he really needed to win, he couldn't win. He couldn't win the doggone, what is it, the Freedom Bowl? Used to be the Freedom Bowl. What's it called now?
Hold on. It's the Celebration Bowl. Come on now, get it right now.
But it used to be. The Celebration Bowl. But he never did no celebrating.
Lizelle with the Carolina, you know he don't know about those Celebration Bowls.
Oh, that's right.
Well, I'm glad he didn't win it, just for that, just because of the way. But
so I did look.
I would say he left them in better shape than he brought them, and for that I can't get upset. And did they win this year? Did they win?
I don't know. I don't know how well they did. They didn't do as well as they did when he was there.
They didn't do as well.
It was FAMU. It was one of the other teams. It wasn't Jackson State.
Yeah, they didn't do as well. Yeah.
Deion's got some positives, right? These guys are graduating school. The graduation rate went up. GPAs at Colorado's up, and the graduation rate is up. So it's not all bad, right? To Hump's point,
who's graduating? His son is on social media talking about, I'm not going to class next week. I'm going to the league on social media.
But they all don't go to class now. That's
but
the whole,
you got to look at the way the system
then
is set.
Then how they getting this
virtual
paper?
Classes? He don't have to be physical at a
they're
class.
online, right? Yeah, even Travis, all of them said
Shedeur said he was done with books. He's done. Shedeur said he was done.
Just a quick fact check. South Carolina
That's what everybody does.
South Carolina State did beat. Jackson State did beat South Carolina State in the Celebration Bowl in 2020.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, they won it, so he left them in a better place. They won it, so
they were 11-2, and they were 11-2.
And you can't think about that. You can't.
So he gets
facilities.
He get credit for that.
He gets credit for setting them up.
What is that? What is that adage about teaching a man to fish? What is it? You're a fisherman, Paul. What is that?
Look, man, give them a fish, they'll eat for a day.
Look, I'm chomping at the bit to chime in on this because
Pete, you were the first person I heard say he was coaching. You thought he was coaching because he wanted to make his son better. You were the first person I heard say that.
Look, it's not just to make his son better. Shedeur was going to, I think it was Florida International before he went to Jackson State.
Mm-hmm.
He was not even going to be the first option there. And this was a long-term plan because Deion had to get his master's to actually be the head coach, right?
Right.
His plan was never to develop young men at HBCUs. That was an avenue for him to get Shedeur playing time. That's what it was. Because Shedeur's he's not a prototype quarterback. And Deion knows what they were going to do with him when they got their hands on him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason. I mean, if you say, hey, should he be there? If it was about that, yes. But it was never about that. And then he got a chance to do something I don't think he ever thought he could do. A Power 5, then at that point, school came knocking.
Right.
And something else you got to think about. Deion's not an HBCU guy, right? He's a Florida State, all facilities are great, big-time guy.
He ain't swag. He ain't swag.
He's not. He ain't swag. Listen, this is true. Have any of you been to Jackson State before?
Yeah.
No.
You've been to that university?
I drove past it. Never been in it.
I went to Jackson, Mississippi before Deion was the coach because I'm looking at facilities, see what they're like for my son, right? Their facilities look like a bad high school. Like the practice field was just a grass field with some rusty equipment on it. That is not where Deion was going to stay. He wasn't there. It would have taken him 20, 30 years to get to A&T level probably at Jackson State facility.
To get new grass and new facilities and equipment. He did that already.
No. I'm talking about just to get them to where he wants to be. Deion was complaining about the crime in Jackson State. He was like, my kids aren't safe. He wasn't going to stay, right? What he did for them was, I think, that's all you can expect out of him. It's Neon Deion. It's Neon Deion. He's going to want to be under the brightest lights he can find, and that's the idea. So should he be there? Probably yes. Am I surprised he's not? No. Now, on Shedeur, I want to chime in on Shedeur, right? Shedeur is not a bad quarterback. If you want to say, well, Travis Hunter he saved him. Well, what about these guys that got all these outstanding receivers on their squads at these Big Ten and SEC schools? Do we knock them down for having outstanding wide receivers?
They never get propped up. They never get propped up that much.
They don't. But here's the thing: when it comes to college football, what I've asked, and maybe Humps asked Dwight about this, the difference that you see is on the line.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The difference is on the line. Right? And Colorado never had a great line, right? Suspect all the time, right?
And it shows.
But Shedeur made something out of nothing as much as he could. Now you could say, well, he had Travis Hunter. Okay, he had Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr. You can't tell me there aren't other receivers that are outstanding out there, right? So I think he should have been higher than a 5th-round pick. If he wasn't Deion's son, he probably would have been at least a 2nd-round pick, is what it sounds like, right? and he's outplaying Dylan Gabriel in camp at this point. So say what you want. Say what you want. I think they did him dirty in the draft.
No.
I heard just the opposite, that he's not outplaying Dylan Gabriel. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What?
Well,
you can't.
Okay,
you can't separate.
Before this quick, if you say he's outplaying, how many times have you seen a 5th round pick get this much consideration when supposedly the team didn't even want him, but they're still giving him top level opportunity? That doesn't happen.
We're just talking about
that's you talking about what you're hearing in the media, because I'm hearing a whole lot of different stuff.
It's just 3 days of OTAs. Can we just let this play out a little bit first, though? Right? Like, it's way too early.
He's getting reps.
All I'm saying is you can't separate the fact that he's gotten even the opportunities he had from the fact that Deion is his father. Right? Yes. Now, if you want to say that he is developed into a guy who has the skill set of a 2nd or 3rd round quarterback, I respect that opinion, right? But you started this by saying, coming out of high school, he was a Florida International type prospect. Right.
Well, and that is where he got his opportunity. I'm not saying I don't know what he was at that point, but that's where his opportunity was.
That's probably, and you also said he's not prototypical in a whole lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. Because Deion was his father, and basically set the table at Jackson State, set the table at Colorado, is giving him every opportunity and more to get boosted up as high as he has, to the fact that he was in the conversation for being a top 5 type pick, right? That's basically what you're saying, right? and if because that's I agree 100% with everything you said there, right? But if you extend him grace for all that Deion has did to lift him up, you then also have to respect those people who say, I ain't signing up for the fucking Deion experience with Shedeur. And that's why maybe I'll give you 3rd, 4th round, right? But you're talking about someone who didn't have to beat out other quarterbacks once he got on campus for these schools. He did.
Most don't. Most times you go there, they know who their number 1 is. Unless somebody does something special, most times.
No.
Competition. You hear about competition. When you hear about competition of quarterbacks at a D1 school, it's because they all suck. If you got somebody who's standing out, they walk onto campus, it's their job to lose.
Especially now. Michigan paying Underwood $8 million. He is the starter. Unless something special happens, he's walking on Michigan's campus this year as the starter because he's getting paid. Period. There's no competition unless so somebody had to do something special.
True.
To be, and that's most times.
Manning had to sit behind Quinn fucking Ewers.
No, Manning
sure did.
Manning chose to because he got paid anyway, and they told him going in that he wasn't going to be the starter. Believe me, that deal was laid out, and he could afford to sit. He wasn't these guys coming in, well, I need the money, I can't afford. No, he could afford to sit. That's a special case.
My question is, though,
he is an exception to the rule.
Why do we put so much scrutiny on this because he's Deion's son? We wouldn't put this much scrutiny on if he was somebody else's son.
I agree with you, Huck, which is why I don't understand why we get so animated by the fact that he fell to the 5th round. Because I'm just saying you can't keep having it both ways. That he gets propped up, and you prime, he propped up, but then you when it goes the other way, now it's crime.
But Ken, you're saying he got propped up. He performed on the field.
Yes,
he performed on the field. He doesn't matter.
How he told you a lot of that yardage was when the game was over, Paul.
He went to a team that was
on the field.
He went to a team that won one game. One game, and he had no line. No line. That is impossible to do if you're a quarterback. I don't care who you are. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have a line. He's getting sacked. You saw the Super Bowl,
he was
right?
running for his life in those games.
He got sacked. He ran for his life, and he got sacked. What are you saying?
But you cannot dispute that he performed on the field. That's what he did.
And you cannot dispute that he's been propped up through the whole process.
But
if I'm a skeptic, hold on, no.
But does that matter?
No, it does. It does to some.
Why doesn't it matter?
Let me give you an example. They say last year's draft class is so much better than this year's draft class. The quarterbacks, they're light years better, and I say they are not. They are not. That's what I say. Be personal.
I think they are.
I don't think so. I don't think
You
so.
lost your credibility on this one.
I think they are.
Yeah, but I think
so.
Can you mute yourself? Because that,
I don't think so.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
They're not light years better than the two in this class. Put it like that. They're not light years better. They're not light years better than Cam Ward and Shedeur. They're not light years better.
We didn't use no light years. We just said
no.
You didn't think they were better.
No.
I say they were not better.
That's what the analysts say. They say they are. This class is so much hard. They would be third-round picks if they were last year. I'm telling you, these two guys at the top of this draft are not what they say they are. They're not horrible players. They're not second or third round picks in last year's draft. Only because the decision makers are on that same old of this guy's prototypical, so we're going to make him a first-round pick. Daniel Jones, right? Mitch Trubisky,
they got these
that shit happens every year.
But wait, hold on, wait. That's less Daniel Jones's fault and more the GM's fault. That was awful. That was awful. You can't. That's an awful example. That's an awful example.
That's a great
awful
example. That's a great example. He should have turned down the money.
How so?
He should have turned down the money.
But P wrecked his own argument because you were comparing them to the 2024 class, but then you went Daniel Jones. Is he better than? Is Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders better than Michael Penix?
I would say.
Watch yourself.
This is what I'm saying. I'm not going to say that Michael Penix is light years ahead of them, right? I'm not going to say that.
You're the only one using light years.
No, I'm not. I might be the only one. I might be the only one on this podcast. I might be the only one on this podcast, but
that's all we worried about. That's all we worried about is who's on the podcast. That's all we worried about is who's on the podcast. I don't care about nobody else. Who's on the podcast? Who's on the podcast?
Hold on 1 second.
He wasn't at the beginning. Yeah,
get him, man. Get him, because he's waffling. He's waffling.
Ask the question that normally Paul asks his question once a podcast. Hey, what would he say right now, Quake?
You mad, huh?
You damn right. I am, because y'all that bullshit, man. I'm telling
you. Man, come on, man. You gotta miss me with that, man. You something wrong. Okay, we laughing, but now
look. I'm probably gonna cut some of that because I probably said something I don't want to get back up. But anyway, I'm telling you,
that was fine.
But Deion definitely should not still be there. He definitely should not still be there at all.
No.
Can
we gonna agree to disagree?
Let's move on.
The last thing I'll say is, and because we had this in our chat at the time, right? Real time. Some of us had a problem with, as Lizelle has said, not so much even that he left, that is the word he used. He made it and said it was about the kids, which we kind of felt like it never was. It was always Prime being Prime. And that feels like some bullshit.
And let me say this last thing, P, is that it reminded me of a coach who I will continue to hate forever, when Nick Saban did that same thing with the Dolphins. And that's what made me think of it. And I wanted better for Deion than I did for Nick Saban.
Well, it was the Dolphins, man.
I'd have respected that comment more than LSU.
Well, either way.
Listen,
I did that for Richie. Richie's not here. He's a Dolphins fan. I just had to give him some love.
Right, for sure. My fruit too fresh. You mad, huh?